Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to Citizen Joe, the Hudson Valley Speaks Out. This is a continuation of my television show, the Joanne Michaels Show, which some of you have seen in the past. And we're going to discuss various legal, political, important issues to all of us in the Hudson Valley. Many of these issues get short shrift in the papers, on the radio, in various other places because of conflicts of interest with advertisers, etc. But several guests are going to be coming on my show and talking about these issues, and I'm pleased to introduce Elliott Auerbach, my first guest, my first show, Citizen Joe. Welcome, Elliott.
Well, thank you. I'm honored.
And Elliott is the Comptroller, Treasurer of Ulster County, and maybe you can tell me, because many people don't know, like myself, exactly what the Comptroller Treasurer does.
Sure. Well, the Comptroller's position is a position that was created in 2008 with a charter change in Ulster County. It actually it transferred the responsibility of most of the financial oversight of county government to the Comptroller's office. We put it quite simply is that the Comptroller oversees the care, custody, and control of the taxpayers' money. And it's Comptroller, so it's C-O-M-P-T-R-O-L-L-E-R, and we like to say the MP stands for Money Police, because that's basically what we do. We are there to ensure that every dime and every dollar of the taxpayers' money is well spent.
Well, it took the jail debacle to bring this.
Yes.
Somebody
Yeah.
had to be accountable.
Yes.
Our grandchildren will be paying for that.
Well, that's true.
But it's good you're here now. Better late than never.
Well, thank you. And of course, it's through crisis, of course, good evolves, and this was the evolution of the jail debacle, as well as the creating the office of the county executive the same way, holding somebody responsible as the chief operating officer of the county on a daily basis. So it was an accountability factor, and it was forced through referendum by the citizens of Ulster County.
Why do you think other counties like Dutchess and Orange have always had an executive
Right.
who was responsible? But in Ulster County, a lot of things happened financially that were shady.
Well, I agree.
And why did it take so long, do you think?
Shady's a kind word. I agree with you. It was an evolution. It was a process. I believe there's 52 counties in New York State. Not all of them have county executives, nor do all of them have controllers. As a matter of fact, in New York State, there are only 8 counties with elected controllers, Dutchess County being one of them, Orange County not being one of them.
Well, Edward Diana.
He's the county executive, but there is no elected county controller. So some counties have boards of supervisors that manage the county. Ulster County, Orange County, Dutchess County have elected legislators that set policy in the county. So each county has a different flavor to it, so to speak. The executive/controller form of government, though, seems to be the trend, and it provides the taxpayers of the respective counties with an accountability and transparency factor.
Well, let me ask you this. When you were in high school and college, did you ever think this was what you were going to do? What is your background? Are you from Ellenville originally?
I did grow up in Ellenville. It's a funny story. When I speak to especially college students and young adults, I said, I didn't lay back in my bed when I was in 8th grade, look up at the ceiling and say, someday when I grow up, I'm going to be the Ulster County Comptroller. Nor could I probably have spelt the word in 8th grade either. But I evolved in the public service field. I grew up in Ellenville, went away to college, did my undergraduate and graduate work at Hofstra University, spent 10 years away from Ellenville, came back, and decided that I needed to bloom where I was planted. And I was replanted back in Ellenville, got involved in local government, and actually ran for mayor in the late 80s, early 90s, and won that and served the community for 3 terms as mayor. Spent a good portion of my time just trying to rebuild a community that was in transition at that time, and really caught the love for public service. I mean, it just, the ability to help other people with problems, specifically government-related problems, really was a passion and a burn of mine.
Did you work in the private sector?
Worked in the private sector. Actually, my family owned a hardware business. That's
In Ellenville?
In Ellenville. That's truly what brought me back there. And then again, had some amazing opportunities. You know, I will say happened to be in the right place at the right time. Under the Clinton administration, they were developing a small, I call it boutique federal initiative called the Rural Economic Area Partnership. They needed an executive director at the time, and I got a phone call asking me if I'd be interested in that after I served as mayor, and did that for 2 years under the Clinton administration through the USDA. So that gave me another glimpse at government. I call it the peek behind the curtain from a federal perspective. So recognize that I came from a municipal small community perspective, and then had the opportunity to transition into this federal view of the world. So it allowed me to balance what I was seeing. So around 2008, when the comptroller's opportunity came up, I decided to run for it, figuring that I could bring my private sector experience and my public sector experience along with me to Ulster County government, and ran and won.
But you also brought some character along.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
And I would like to just interject.
Thank you.
Very often in local government, we have a lot of people who are very good at what they do, but they're very careful to do the politically correct thing, not always the right thing for the people. And I will say that I have been following a lot of the confrontations you've had with the county executive, with the county sheriff, in trying to do the right thing for the people of Ulster County, which is why I asked you to come on this show today, Elliott.
Well, I'm glad somebody recognized that, Joanne. It's controversy in some respects. It's really the ability to change a culture, and I'm the new kid there, and I use the word kid with quotations around it. The county executive came into his position as the county administrator, so he had already been in county government, and the sheriff, of course, had been elected at least one term before I got there. So here I am walking in and saying to two people who have been there, well, you may not want to do it this way, or you can't do it this way. And of course, it does create a certain amount of friction, but really, our charge on a daily basis is to be the watchdog of the taxpayers, and that's how we approach everything that we do. Is it correct? Is it ethically correct? Is it financially correct? Is it morally correct? Sometimes I feel that I'm the conscience of the county, both from the fiscal and moral side of it. So we do bang heads. One of my controversies with the sheriff was about the expenditure of forfeiture money through a program called Urgent.
Okay, forfeiture money. I remember the Urgent was a drug.
Right.
Police were trying to get.
Right. It's the Ulster Regional Narcotics and Gang Enforcement Team, and they serve a tremendous purpose in helping local policing agencies in the 20 towns and 3 villages in Ulster County with some of the larger problems, the drug-related problems, the gang-related problems. And along with that comes arrests and forfeiture of money. And the sheriff and I saw the use of forfeiture money through different sets of lenses.
Now, when you say forfeiture money, we all watch Law and Order and all the crime shows on TV. I do. I've always liked that. I don't watch reality TV. I watch crime, true crime. So when the cops get all this money coming in from they get a stash of whatever, where does the money go?
Well, we would hope that the money gets cataloged. It has to be accounted for. And
who's in charge of that? The sheriff?
The sheriff has a team, an urgent team that's in charge of it. And that leads us into another interesting story, which we'll talk about. But the money then gets turned over to the federal government. The federal government takes their share, their poundage, so to speak, of that money, and then returns back a portion of it to the sheriff, who then should be distributing it to the local municipalities who participate in the urgent program. So there's operating money, and of course some of this money is confiscated through as a result of ill-gotten criminal activity. So you
Right.
could understand that there could be tens of thousands of
Right.
dollars, which there is.
Right.
So, the sheriff and I, saw that the use of money could have been stewarded better, could have been accounted for better. Not that we felt that there initially was any problems, but we just felt that there needed to be an internal control mechanism, a check and balance, so to speak, on as to how that money was managed. And that led us to
Is that where you had a disagreement with him
well,
or something?
we started there, but it led to a heartbreaking story, and that was the arrest and conviction of one of his urgent team members.
Was that Matthews?
Yes, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so through following the money, quote unquote, we discovered that there was some impropriety there.
A lot of impropriety.
Well, yeah,
as I recall. Is he in jail yet?
He's definitely in jail. He was arrested and convicted. He was a career police officer. It was an unfortunate series of events, but whatever motivated him to do what he did, it all began by looking
I
at the
didn't
books.
know that. That's how they caught him.
We contributed to that. There were several different issues that contributed to him being caught. And again, unfortunate, it blackened the eye of Urgent, which quite honestly is a great program. And you could recognize the success of the program when you talk to some of the local policing agencies. Without being able to use the Urgent team, their hands are literally tied in some of these smaller communities that couldn't afford that. So, but the end of the story, so to speak, the happy ending is the sheriff has realized that we're there as an ally and not as an enemy. We're there to recognize the blind spots if there are any.
So he didn't like, I guess, you're coming in and telling him or suggesting to him to account for the money in a certain specific accounting way.
Correct, and it's basic internal control procedures. It's the check and balance. The person who handles the money shouldn't be the person who deposits the money.
Well, the sheriff isn't an accountant.
Well, I
mean, I don't understand why this would even be an issue.
Again, Joanne, it only was an issue because here was this new person elbowing his way through the door, telling the sheriff, and not specifically this sheriff, but any sheriff, how to really manage the financial side of the equation.
But isn't this local problem that we had or have, or a lot of places must have locally, really translates to the federal government, to the big, there's no oversight on the bankers, who in my estimation, all 7 of them that appeared before Congress should be behind bars like Mr. Matthews, who you caught. So a lot of these issues, there is no oversight about what's going on, about stealing money on a local level or managing the money. What about all those mortgages? What about what was done through the loopholes in and around, and then some? So all these things, I mean, there can't be enough oversight.
I agree. I mean, of course, I agree with you. I mean, that's what we do on a daily basis. I'll give you a quick example. We look at every purchase that the county makes, every dime and every dollar that the county spent. One of the numbers that jumps out at me is for the first quarter of 2013, the folks in my office reviewed $58 million worth of county purchases and payroll. They looked at 14,000 various vouchers and invoices that the county was spending money on to ensure that the money was properly spent, that there was a contract in place, that the price was correct, that the goods were received. So these are the...
Well, that they're getting estimates and bids from a lot of places,
that they're
right?
following the bidding procedures and how the law prescribes it. So these are the basic checks and balances. We often say that it's really a common sense approach to managing money. And when we get lazy and when we don't care, that's when there's opportunity for fraud and corruption. If we institute an internal control mechanism where you may write the checks, but I come in and reconcile the account, then we have 2 sets of eyes. Now, we may be in collusion, and there may be that problem too, so there may be a 3rd set of eyes that's needed. But that's how we need to approach everything as we go along. We call ourselves in our office professional skeptics. We want to look at everything. We just want to ensure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, that the money flows correctly.
And for so long in Ulster County, that was not the case. Dean Palin and his wife, they found some, money in the, he was the head of the health department?
We did it. We
Were
found,
you
we
the
found, we
people?
found $33,000 in uncashed checks and unissued permits in a safe behind the Commissioner of Health's desk. And his wife was his secretary.
So there you have it.
yeah.
And there was nobody minding the store in that county, and that's what you found. There were many things that were not found.
Right.
And
Well-
as a citizen and a taxpayer of Ulster County, it's rather shocking.
Well, look what it did. It not only shined the light on that issue, but what about nepotism? What about create, which
Yes.
I will
Ulster
add.
County was very big on nepotism.
Well, I will add, though, that the legislature picked up on that, as did the county executive, and understood the importance of that. And we also fostered out of that a whistleblower law that we wanted the legislature to craft, so that people would feel comfortable coming forward.
Did that pass in the
Yeah,
legislature?
it did,
Really?
and I commend the legislature and the executive's office for understanding that, too, because again, there was this culture that we walked into. It was a culture of 20 to 30 years, and it was analyzing it, seeing what the blind spots were, what the shortcomings were, and then trying to correct it. And look, there's 40 departments and divisions and offices in county government. So it's a job where we are constantly monitoring, looking at, and trying to understand if there is, in fact, true financial stewardship. We use data mining tools, technology, where we will feed numbers into a data mining program and look at how the money is being spent, and that gives us some indication if it's correct or not.
How many people work for you?
Well, I should have about 500, but I have 8. There are 8 people working there. I'm very lucky, though. I have a great staff. My director of internal audit and control is a CPA who comes from the private sector and has been in the private sector for 19 years, mostly monitoring municipalities. So it was great to have him in. My deputy controller is an attorney.
Who is the deputy controller?
Joe Ariel, and
Okay.
Joe's an attorney, again with a municipal background. So I'm very fortunate. And then I have 2 great senior auditors and 2 auditors, and we are constantly on a daily basis just looking at contracts, looking at purchases, looking at payments, even going down to the point of following somebody's mileage reimbursement where they put in for 55.5 cents a mile to see if it's true and accurate. And so it's a job that could really easily use another half a dozen people on the staff.
Right. Well, when Mike Hine came in as county executive, I knew him when he was manager of the North Star Bank, which was then now Bank of America.
Could have been Fleet at the time.
It was Fleet
yeah.
when he was there.
Many names.
Yeah, many names. But he has a finance background, and I think he's doing an excellent job.
He is.
Of really getting the county to do, for instance, the cleaning the streets of the snow. That was an interesting thing he suggested, to have
A share program.
shared.
Absolutely.
Which, all these little entities in Ulster County were spending money cleaning all that, so even little things like that.
You're right. No, I mean, there's opportunity here, and the executive is a forward thinker. He sees the opportunity. Again, there's 20 towns, 3 villages, and 1 county. There are multiple layers of government. If you live in Woodstock, you know that you have the town board to deal with, but you also have county government and state issues. If you live in New Paltz, you have the village of New Paltz, the town of New Paltz, county government, and of course the state to deal with. So there are these layers of government. The Shared Services Initiative makes a lot of sense. There are other things I think that we can be doing, and we've really came out early on saying that we could foster some other ideas. Why not have centralized tax collection as opposed to every municipality having one tax collector? In today's electronic world, why not accept payments via the internet from credit card? Why do we have multiple assessors? Why do we have 20 towns and each town has their own? So those are the kind of things those are the bigger picture things, and the county exec's office has embraced that.
So in the future, what do you see for Ulster County in terms of your area? Do you think there will be? I mean, it would be nice if all the people in your department were earning their, saving the county
Right.
as much as they're earning,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Well, the good
You
news.
should do an analysis
Well,
on that.
we have, and I will tell you, just from these recent events that we talked about earlier, my staff probably saved the county upwards to about $2 to $3 million already. We just finished an early report in 2013 on the Department of Social Services on the child care program, and saw tens of thousands of dollars being misspent. So again, we can quantify it by keeping a scorecard and say, oh, we've done this. But what we feel is it's incumbent upon us to create a new culture, to
Well, more efficient. I think people like myself, we just are astounded sometimes at the inefficiency of government or the red tape and the typical things people say. I understand the problems, that working government as opposed to the private sector, which is where I've always been. But it's nice to know that you're doing this,
Well,
that you're taking that seriously.
Well, we feel we have two charges. Our first charge is our internal charge, and that is really to get people to, the folks who work in county government, to be responsible. Treat it like I call it like it's an ownership mentality, that they own their job, that they're there to do the right job and do the right thing. And then our external approach is to help every citizen in Ulster County work through that myriad of red tape.
Right.
We consider our office to be a conduit, and are able to work with people while we may not have the answers to their problems or their questions, at least point them in the right direction.
So people can go up to your office and actually,
They can knock on first of all, our door is always open.
well,
I
that's interesting.
I
I never would think of it.
I answer my own phone, and the folks who work for me are, I'll call them our customer focused. They realize who they are serving there, and they're there to serve the folks of Ulster County. So there's no question that's unusual or crazy, and we're able to steer people to get the answer. It may be a 91-year-old woman calling us from Warsing who couldn't figure out how to get Meals on Wheels to come to her house. Or it may be an issue where somebody is having difficulty paying their property taxes, and we work with them through the Commissioner of Finance to set up a payment program. So it's, again, there's a multitude of things that we can do, but we even go beyond that. We try and set up a relationship with each town supervisor, meet with them infrequently, but meet with them just to talk over issues. The three mayors in Ulster County from the three villages talk to them, and have a direct relationship with every department in Ulster County to see if we can foster better government at a better price, quite honestly.
Well, it's a big county. I mean, I travel the whole county. I write the travel books, the
Right.
guidebooks of the region.
I would be lost without it.
And, and I'm always traveling. I mean, even places like Lou Beach, which
Yeah.
is in the northwest corner. I mean, people think that's Sullivan County, but it's Ulster.
It's funny you say that, Joanne. You ask people, and I do this as a test, ask people where Willow is, or you would know, or
Right.
where Ruby is, or
Right.
Clintondale. That was a
Yes,
good one
yes.
the other day. I said to my staff, I have a meeting in Clintondale, and they said, "Where's Clintondale?"
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a county.
It's very big and it's very
Geographically,
diverse.
geographically, it's. I hear our county is as big as the state of Rhode Island. So from a geography standpoint, you could travel, and it's diverse, as you say. It's amazing that the assets that the county has. I mean, just drive around. You could be on the river, and you could be in the mountain. You could be hiking, up through Mohonk, or you could be kayaking on the Hudson. How remarkable is that? So it's a great place.
It's interesting because I do a lot of business in Dutchess County. I'm back and forth over those bridges all the time. And there are people who never cross the bridges, or they come to, I'm on the board of the Roosevelt Vanderbilt Historic Sites. And I organized the annual dinner, and I brought them all over the river to the Rondout, to the Steel House, which is no
Okay,
longer
sure,
there.
right?
But it was funny. Some of them never crossed the bridge there. Some of them had never been to the Rondout area of Kingston.
So you sound like a one-woman tourism board here. You bring them,
I just think
wave them over.
I think that all over the world, people tend to be more provincial. They'll go to the same restaurants or they'll do that kind of thing. And it's just interesting
Yep.
that, it takes that kind of push sometimes to get people.
But once they come into Ulster County, they fall in love with it.
No, it is. I love it. I live in Woodstock. I'm in Ulster County for 32 years. It is a wonderful place to live. Anyway, Thank you very much
Well,
for
thank you.
joining me,
Thank-
Elliott. And I
thanks for the
really
opportunity.
learned a lot about the
Well, we-
operations.
And as we said, the door is open. Just get off the 5th floor of the county building on 244 Fair Street, yell Elliott, and I'll come out and get you.
You hear that out there? That's true. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.